Today is a great, wonderful, amazing, incredible day, and I'll tell you why. Because it's Sweden Day. The Vipeholm experiments. Without further ado, let's get into this reaction. Let's go.
From 1946 until 1951, the Swedish government, with funding from the sugar and chocolate manufacturers, carried out one of the most disturbing experiments into the effects of sugar on a person's teeth. Human subjects were fed high-sugar diets, including a specially created toffee designed to stick to teeth. These human subjects were found...
Sorry, an experiment. The reason why my mouth was just open is because I am very scared about what he's about to say next. He just said an experiment where they experiment with sugar, and the first picture on the screen are young people that look like they have Down syndrome. Or Down syndrome. Sweden. What am I about to hear right now? Oh God. I'm gonna put it back. I'm scared.
Teeth. Human subjects were fed high-sugar diets, including a specially created toffee designed to stick to teeth. These human subjects were found at the Vipeholm hospital, which housed people with various learning or mental disabilities who were unable to consent to the 6-year-long experiment. By the end, those who were forced to eat the high-sugar diets were left with dozens of cavities each, without any follow-up treatment. In today's video, we will cover just why such experiments took place, what the patients were forced to endure, and the consequences. It is perhaps helpful to start with the situation in Sweden at the turn of the 20th century. Very little was known about the causes of dental diseases such as cavities, and in Sweden, rates of such diseases were astoundingly high. 80% of infants aged 3 had cavities, whilst the Swedish military reported 99% of its conscripts having some form of dental issues. Dentists were few and far between, and usually prohibitively expensive for the average person. During sugar rationing of the First and Second World Wars, decay rates dropped. It was also noted that...
Well, if decay rates dropped when they had sugar ration, that should have been it. Yeah, that should have told you everything you need to know. Clearly, sugar's the problem. So then why do they need to experiment for 6 months on people with learning difficulties with sugar and rot their teeth? That is horrendous. That is cruel. That's horrible. God, sometimes I hate history. Sometimes history can be really beautiful and rich and cultural, and sometimes history can just be so horrible, and we need to learn from the past, and this is why we need to learn about history. I didn't know this took place in Sweden.
That children in orphanages without access to high-sugar diets did not suffer the same rates of dental diseases. It was suspected that sugar and carbohydrates were to blame, but there was little in the way of scientific evidence. The impetus to carry out research came as part of wider social reforms being put in place by the Swedish Social Democratic government. The cost to implement a nationwide dental service was projected to be expensive, and so it was decided that prevention of dental decay was better than the cure. In 1939, the National Board of Health posed 2 questions. 1. What was the cause of tooth decay? And 2. How could it be prevented? A sufficiently large sample of human test subjects would be required to find the answers. Yet, there was a problem. These experiments would be high risk for those involved, putting their dental health at risk. Other factors would need to be monitored, and the test...
So they thought, okay, it's going to be very high risk, it's going to put people at risk, so let's choose the most vulnerable people in society because, who cares? So, times have changed so much.
Subjects requiring careful observation. The solution to these problems would be found in the patients of the Vipeholm hospital. The Vipeholm hospital was described as an institute for the mentally deficient. The patients were often sent there by their families, unable or unwilling to care for them, often pressured by the authorities that such hospitals were the best place. Those with psychiatric disabilities were at the time diagnosed with imbecility, which covered a wide range of conditions and needs, such as Down syndrome, autism, and all manner of learning difficulties. Very often, such people were labelled as uneducable. At the time, the hospital housed around 1,000 people. Around 1/3 were bedbound or strapped to their beds at all times. Around 50% had difficulties in communication. Most of the patients would spend the rest of their lives in the hospital, often without any contact from their families. It was from this population of forgotten, disregarded, and dehumanized people that the test subjects were selected. The man in charge of the hospital
So insidious. They were like, yeah, they didn't have any family. Their family, shipped them off to live in these places, So it's like they're the most vulnerable. They don't have anyone to fight their battles. They can literally do what they want with these people. It's so bad. So sad.
Dr. Hugo Frodeberg welcomed the scientist to experiment on his patients with open arms. It is fair to say that Frodeberg had a dim view of those under his care. He ranked his patients on a scale of 0 to 6 for intelligence, often referring to the patients as if they were animals. He was quoted as saying at the time that the material for study, that is the patients, were unique as the lowest of them felt no pain, even if one were to hold a lit match to their lips. Of the 1,000 patients,
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Imagine saying that, oh yeah, they don't feel any pain. These are human beings, regardless of their learning difficulties, regardless of their cognition. Of course they feel pain. Oh God, let's not get angry. You can get angry because it's in the past, but it's just, how can you have so little empathy? Like, how can you do that? If people can feel empathy towards animals, how can they not feel empathy towards someone with a human being that has a learning difficulty? It's crazy to me.
633 were selected due to their perceived acceptance, though for the publishing of the results, the data of 436 patients were used. Around 2/3 of the subjects were male, with an average age of around 30. There were, however, a number of children enrolled in the study, as young as 6 years old. The patients did not consent to the experiment in any way. Those selected had to show no signs of tuberculosis and needed at least 10 teeth in various degrees of health. The experiment began in 1946 with the unwilling participants given for the first year a balanced diet along with vitamin supplements. At this stage, a number of the hospital staff took part. It was hoped that such a diet would reverse the effects of the existing decay. Although it did not reverse the effects, there was little in the way of further damage to the patient's teeth. For the often previously poorly fed patients, they left the first year healthier than they had been in a long time, although this increase in health would soon be offset. For the next 2 years, the unwilling participants were split into various groups. One group would continue to eat a normal diet, acting as the control. Others would be given all manner of high-sugar food. For example, one group was given a sucrose solution with each meal. Another was made to eat chocolate every day, and another group was forced to eat caramels each day.
Bro, like they're like animals, So insidious that they fed them a healthy diet initially, and then they decided, oh, so we're going to take these different controlled groups and give them different foods to eat, and let's see what happens to them. That's horrible.
2 of the groups were given toffees, one given 8 regular toffees each day, but the other was given something far more disturbing. The manufacturers involved were told to produce the worst toffee imaginable. The goal was to create a toffee that would be incredibly difficult to dislodge from one's teeth, that would be larger than regular toffees and would require more chewing. These Vipeholm toffees were given to the patients, who were made to eat as many as 24 of these a day. The goal was to have the participants eating these toffees at all times of the waking day for the duration of the first 2 years of the study. After the first 2 years of the study, portion sizes were altered for the groups, either less of the sucrose solution or introducing new sugary foods to the diets of the test subjects.
My teeth are hurting just thinking about it. Like toffee in the best of times when it gets stuck in your teeth is so annoying. But imagine being force-fed toffee constantly and it being stuck in your teeth. The pain. And toothache. I don't know if you've ever had toothache. Most people have. It is the worst pain imaginable. I think it's one of the worst pains. I mean, not that I've been in lots of pain. Like, I'm not a woman. I don't know what period pain feels like or time of the month. But for a man... not saying much, but for a man, right, yeah, toothache is wild, man. That is like, it's painful. It's like shooting pains into your head. Like, it's horrible to do this to these people. Oh.
It is perhaps not surprising that for the 24 toffee group, there was no longer a need to test the effects. The toffees were withdrawn and no more sugar was added to their diets of the patients. After the first 2 years, cavities, decay, and instances of dental disease rose to an average of 21 per individual. In short, the patients of this group, some 50 people, had their teeth utterly ruined. In 1947, whilst the experiments were still running, the Nuremberg Codes were passed. These were ethical principles enshrined into international law following the trials of the Nazi doctors who conducted horrendous experiments on unwilling prisoners, notably Jews, Slavs, and Roma. The key requirement now for any human experiments was voluntary, informed consent. This one was the first of 10 points that formed the code, including that such experiments needed to be for the good of humankind, that all physical and emotional harm be minimalized as much as possible, and that the experiments ought to be stopped if there is a risk of injury or death to the subjects. And yet, there was no alteration to the Vipeholm experiments in light of the new standards of ethical and humane human research.
Yeah, because they saw them as less than humans. So all these standards, all these codes of ethics that they put into law, because they saw them as less than human, and also probably the legal guardians or the parents, the families, probably signed away their rights of like guardianship, right, to this hospital. So basically the people that run the institution, they own these people technically. They are their legal guardians, so they felt like they could make these decisions and they were above the law. And because these people have learning difficulties, they're not able to make their own decisions, so they've made the decision for them. It's so evil. So evil.
The experiment continued, with diets given to the participants resembling the average Swedish family diet. By the end of the experiment, nothing was done to remedy the damage done to the patient's teeth. It was dismissed that the patients refused such treatment. As stated previously, the study was in part funded by the Swedish Chocolate, Confectionery and Biscuit Manufacturers Association. Some £60,000 of confectionery was provided during the study, including the infamous toffee designed to stick to the person's teeth. As you might imagine, the patients would often grow tired of the same chocolates, and so, new flavours were developed and provided to the unwilling subjects. Whilst it may seem odd that these companies would sponsor such an event that might ruin their business, they gained access to the data to better understand which candies caused the most damage, and to better profit from more sustainable recipes. Once the data was compiled and it was clear that sugar and carbohydrates were the cause of dental disease, the manufacturer...
I think that was clear a long time ago, mate. Do you know what I mean? I think we figured that out a long time ago. And the reason why it took so long for them to be like, yeah, maybe sugar is the problem is because it's big business. Big business. Big business. And they want to stay in business. These sugar companies, these bread making companies, they want to stay in business. Yeah? If, people finding out that sugar is really, really bad for you, even more so than your teeth. If you think it rots your teeth, what do you think it does to your body? It does a lot. If people found that out and really knew the truth, they'd lose a lot of money. That's the reason why they funded these crazy experiments on unwilling participants. They're dragging their feet. Like, let's do this thorough 6-year experiment. Even though we know, it's rotting people's teeth. Sugar really does rot people's teeth. But let's do this long, drawn-out experiment on people so that we can continue doing business. That's what it's about. It's about money. Anyways, I rant. I will continue.
Factors pushed back the publication of the results for a number of years. It was not until 1953 that the paper was published. It is important to note that not everyone in the Swedish parliament approved of the study. In 1957, the Swedish government initiated a public health policy that is still popular to this day. Lördagsgodis, that is Saturday sweets, was to encourage the eating of sweets on a Saturday as opposed to every day of the week. To this day, the Nordic countries remain top of the leaderboard in dental hygiene, in part due to the culture around sweets, but also due to the access of quality healthcare. Whilst today we have a better idea about the dangers of sugar, it is still an ongoing issue. From the proliferation of high sugar syrups in all manner of food and drink to the lack of access to affordable healthcare, there is still much to be done. Whilst the research was no doubt useful in showing a correlation between sugar and dental disease, it ought to have been carried out in a humane, consensual and dignified manner, with appropriate aftercare provided. The failure to treat these patients with even an ounce of humanity is a truly regrettable affair, and one that has not yet been properly addressed. To then be denied proper dental treatment following the damage imposed on them is beyond unimaginable. Whilst the idea of being given sweets every day for 4 years may not sound like an imposition, especially when compared to the more grotesque experiments conducted during the Second World War, the slow rotting away of the unwilling subject's teeth was insidious and callous, especially because the researchers sought out people who were vulnerable. And yet, there has been no official apology by the Swedish government, nor from the sugar and candy manufacturers who benefited from the research.
I bet not. I bet there hasn't been any apology or acknowledgement. Of course not. Who's fighting for these people? Their families are not fighting for these people. They gave them away.
Victims of the Vipeholm experiment were forgotten, both in life and now some 80 years later. Yeah. There are links in the description to some papers about the experiments for those who wish to read further and to better understand what these people went through.
I think I understand what they went through. I don't actually know what to say. That's horrendous. That's horrible. It's torture. It's a unique form of torture, and done on human beings that they deemed as not being worth anything, and they felt like they could do that to them and it'll be fine because no one will care, and then for the companies, the sugar companies and the confectionery companies and the bread companies, for them it was just to delay the inevitable. Oh, let's do a 6-year experiment. 6 years. You need 6 years to know that sugar rots your teeth. No, you don't. So for them, it was just like, let's delay the inevitable. Let's see if we can make some sweets that don't rot your teeth as much. Let's look like we're doing something. Yeah, let's look like we're doing something. Let's make some chocolate that, it doesn't seem like it rots your teeth as much. So we can release a study that, okay, so we found out that this chocolate rots your teeth more and this chocolate does less. So we've reduced it by 20%. It doesn't rot your teeth as fast by 20%. This is exactly what they were doing. And this is why they've been able to survive. And even to this day, these companies, these confectionery, chocolate, all these companies that sell sugar in any form, they still fund these papers, these studies to keep their business going. Because if we knew what a lot of these foods do to us as a people, with obesity, with diabetes, with a lot of health implications in our bodies, they'll be shut down like immediately. But they fund these studies to keep going. Anyways, let's not, because YouTube might just take down my video because I'm just talking sense. But anyways, guys, that's enough of this. This was a suggestion from one of my Patreon members, and it's been in the group, basically, there's a folder that my Patreon members can put in any video suggestions, and then I'll do it. The link is in the description if you want to be part of the Patreon. I also do videos where I watch like Swedish TVs and movies like every single week. But this was a suggestion, and I've seen it in the folder for ages, and I've been like, do I want to watch this? Because it looks really like depressing. But I'm glad I did, because it can't be all positive about Sweden. Every single country in the world has dark and light, has negative and positive, and you have to, history is history, and you have to learn from history. And yeah, this was really interesting. I didn't know this. Very cruel, but very interesting. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, I will see you very soon.